Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our third meetup on CKAN Monthly Live. I hope everybody is fresh and well rested after the August break, if you managed to have one, of course. I was expecting less people, to be honest, because many are still out of office, probably chilling somewhere at the seaside, eating papayas, drinking cocktails. But I'm glad that you're here in front of your computers with no papayas, but ready for, I am sure, a fantastic presentation. I see many familiar faces and names. Thank you for being with us again. Now, let me say a few words for the new joiners. In case you haven't yet attended CKAN Monthly Live, in a sentence, it's a monthly web series where each month we meet to connect and explore different topics within and around CKAN. As I said, this is our third meetup, and today we will be talking about the open data portal of the NHS Business Services Authority. You have the link in the chat. We have speakers Nick Greenley, Head of Business Intelligence, and Craig Anderson, Head of External Reporting Services. I will let them introduce themselves in a second, but before that, as always, we have some housekeeping items. There are two ways to ask a question. You can raise a hand and go ahead, or you can drop things in the chat. After the presentation, we'll open the floor for a Q&A session where you are also welcome to share your questions and thoughts. The agenda for today is introduction round, where our speakers will introduce themselves and tell us a few words about their organization. Then we'll have the presentation. Then we'll have the Q&A session. Then it's time for community announcements and sharing in case somebody wants to share something with the community. And we have the closing round at the end. If you want to add things to the agenda, feel free to do it in the meeting doc. There is already a link in the chat. I encourage you to open the meeting doc and drop your name, affiliation, what brings you to CKAN. Also, if you have some suggestions for topics, there is a special section where you can add your suggestions, and it will be great to have your input because this will help us frame future discussions. All the links are available in the meeting doc, as I said, and I'll probably drop them in the chat as well. And with that being said, just one more thing. The meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube account. So everybody will be able to watch it after that. With that being said, I am going into a listening mode and over to our speakers, Nick and Craig. Let me know if everything works smoothly on your side and you can share your screen. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we're also joined by Matthew, who's going to hopefully share the screen and the slides that we've put together.
Great. Hi, Matthew.
Brilliant, thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Craig Anderson. I'm Head of External Reporting Services at the NHS Business Services Authority. And it's great to be here today to kind of talk through our experience with open data and the open data portal and the experience of using CKAN. So Nick and Matthew will kind of introduce themselves as we go, but we'll run through amongst the three of us our experience from the NHSBSA. I'm just going to the next slide. Thanks, Matthew. So what we'll do is I'll just run through a little bit about who we are as the NHS Business Services Authority, describe the journey that we're on around open data and how we've got to this position in terms of our user needs and our kind of broader groups. Nick will talk a little bit around the Open Data Portal itself in terms of some of the infrastructure and usage stats and the kind of the size of the data that we're using. And Matthew will kind of run through and do a live demo of the tool and the portal and show some of the really cool and innovative features that we've built that have been built within the Open Data Portal. So hopefully there'll be real hands-on experience there and people can play along because I know that link has been put into the chat. And then we'll finish off with Nick just explaining what else do we want to do with the Open Data Portal and where are our future ambitions. Okay, so I will get through the beginning bit quickly so we can get into that demo because that's probably the more exciting part. So in terms of the NHS Business Services Authority, we are what's described as an arm's length body of a government department, the Department of Health and Social Care. We were created in around about 2006, and the key purpose of the Business Service Authority is really to help the rest of the NHS run more efficiently. So we describe ourselves as part of the NHS working for the NHS. In the slide there, we are involved with the management of £35 billion worth of NHS spend. So working at that scale right across the NHS is a significant issue. And we'll talk a little bit more about what makes up that £35 billion in a moment. But it's really about how do we use data more efficiently? How do we process information across the NHS more efficiently? How do we digitize more of our services? So there's a broad range of things that the NHS Business Services Authority have been set up to deliver. And as we deliver more services, we're asked to deliver even more. So those numbers and the numbers that we'll talk through future slides will probably continue to grow just in terms of the breadth of the organization. But it's not just about making the NHS or helping the NHS run more efficiently and effectively. It's also about how do we improve better outcomes for users, for clients, for residents, for the broader system. So we talk about ourselves in terms of a purpose for the organization as being a catalyst for better health. So actually, and we'll talk about this in a few moments, but how do we use data not just to ensure that the bill at the end of the day is reduced for the NHS, but actually how do we use our data more efficiently so that actually a person or whole population lives healthier lives, and that's kind of a key drive for us in terms of our purpose. Okay. So in terms of the next slide, I won't focus too much on this, but this is kind of our strategy on a page for the organization. So you can see in terms of our purpose, it's to be a catalyst for better health. And in terms of our vision, we want to be a delivery partner of choice for the NHS. So key part of that mentioned, we are the NHS working with the NHS, but we want to make sure that other organizations, other parts of the health and increasingly care system in England are part or want to work with us. So we are a delivery partner of choice, which means that we need to make sure that our services are improving customer experience. It's easy to work with us and that we're delivering real value and people can see that. And we'll talk I'll talk in a few moments in some of the ways that we're doing that around data. But the other key value that we have as an organization is, or some values that we have as an organization is around being collaborative and being adventurous. And when we come to data and open data, where that drives some of our decision making is that we are not going to be the sole knowledge of how to use our data or how to use the data that we are processing or that we have access to. We do a lot internally within the NHS to use that data and to drive value, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But where we want to be collaborative is we have more users and we have more interested parties, both inside and outside the NHS. And that's where we start to get into the world of open data. We want to do a lot more where we can actually bring in the estimate to be something like 10,000 analysts across the NHS actually we want to use their energy, we want to use their interest and the different ways that they could be looking at that data to derive that value. So being a catalyst for better health doesn't mean that we have to come up with the answers. Sometimes we can just ensure that we provide that platform for broader groups of people. They could be in the NHS or they can be part of the open data community, but allow them to come in and use the data to derive the value themselves. And another key value that I just want to flag here is about kind of being reliable, and being a reliable delivery partner is a key issue as well. And we will come back to that in terms of the needs of our open data community. Okay, so the next slide, please, Matthew. Again, I won't focus too much on this one or necessarily the next slide either. Some key things just to say though, just to notice, and Nick will come back to this in terms of the scale of the organisation and the scale of the data that we are creating, or the impact that we talk about. So £35 billion worth of money is no mean a small number to begin with. We have identified in the past from previous work something like £1 billion of recurring savings for the NHS and its patients. And if you look then on the next slide, when we talk about the 35 billion and where some of this activity kind of is seen, so we talk about over 1 billion prescriptions, 43 million dental forms processed every year. We're talking about millions of rows of data every month being created, and then that gives us some fantastic data and some fantastic opportunities to turn that data into insight to deliver some real value for our end users. And if I move on to the next slide, Matthew, when we talk about our users, the key area here is just to show the kind of the breadth of organizations that exist within kind of the health and care system. These are organizations predominantly that are delivering or commissioning services for patients. Some of these organizations, a large number of these organizations are allowed and are able to see more personal data. So therefore we have a different relationship with these organizations, and they're much more engaged with not just value for money and efficiencies, but also patient safety down to individuals or kind of cohorts of people where we can engage around specific personal data. And that you could imagine, looking at the scale of the data that we were able to process and the breadth of activities that we run as a BSA, that takes up a large part of the day job. But as I mentioned earlier on, one of the key areas that we understood was that we have a great opportunity to engage with a broader group of users. And we've done some previous user research on our open data community. And we know just from the next slide, that will show you kind of the breadth of who our users are. So just as a very quick overview, we know that we've got a range of users from non-profit organizations who are using our data to kind of create visualizations or online tools for them to kind of get insight out to other users. We know that we have users from academia and from kind of local government and other parts of the public sector, charities who are using our data, again, to derive different insights that in reality we wouldn't have time or necessarily the focus to drill down into those questions. We know that there is a large number of people from more commercial and private sector organizations that use our data to understand what activity is going on within the NHS, and again to drive some insights. We also have journalists and broader media using data that we process within the organisation to, again, ask different questions and to understand what's going on. And we also have broader policy teams in different parts of the health and care system to understand, again, what is going on and how could they use data, use the insight in different ways to drive insight and to drive different decisions. So we understand the broad landscape of our users, and we understand the breadth of their needs. I just wanted to show you one on the next slide, just one kind of persona that we'd built just around their needs, wants, and kind of pain points. So largely, the users that we have are highly literate in terms of their data literacy. They can use lots of data. They can process high volumes of data. But what the challenge back to the organization was that we had challenges because we were publishing data in different formats. So we were publishing data in different parts of our website or on a different NHS website. So we also work very closely with partners such as the NHS Digital, who also process data. So the reliability of, is this data going to be available next month, in 6 months, in 12 months? Is it going to be reliable in terms of, is it going to be in the same place? There was a real challenge back to us about that. Consistency about the data in terms of the format and data dictionaries and explanation around the data, and making sure that those formats hadn't changed. Again, those were really key challenges. And another real feedback from users was that they wanted faster access to the data. So they didn't want just to be able to access via CSVs. They wanted an API to be able to access the data, because what they were doing, what they are currently doing, is they take the data and they're feeding their online tools or their reporting or other things. So that consistency and reliability of the service was an absolute fundamental for our end users, which all led us to, as an organization, to developing an open data portal, which if I hand over to Nick just to explain a little bit more about our open data portal.
Cool. Thank you very much, Craig. So as you can see, there's some stats on there on the moment. So I'm Nick Greenley. I'm Head of Business Intelligence at the BSA. So I came into the BSA April 2020 in the middle of a lockdown. So I've inherited a large Oracle stack, which is our enterprise data warehouse. And as I landed in the BSA, we'd already started our conversations with Datopian to create our open data portal, because Craig said it's one of our main priorities is to get as much data out there in the open. We've only got a certain number of resources in the BSA who can analyze that data, so let's make it freely available to everyone. And we did quite a bit of market research, and Datopian kept on coming out top as a leading provider, leading set of resources that could help us shape that journey. Because the product that they used was the CKAN product, and that was widely recognized as being one of the best products to use to create an open data portal. So I inherited that when one of my peers left the organization. So inherited the sort of the technical relationship and the commercial relationship with Datopian. It's been great working with them so far. We've ironed out a few wrinkles that we had. I think when I first took over the platform, there would have been a lot of work that had already happened beforehand with regards to making the platform as proficient as possible. So we're actually on a Google Analytics BigQuery platform, so it's not the Postgres because of the sheer volumes of data. So I think there's been a learning experience from both the BSA and Datopian on that. So other organizations looking at hosting large volumes of data, the Google BigQuery just gives us amazing performance to pull down the data and the APIs. We have 151 total resources across 6 data sets. As Craig said, we're working with external agencies, communities to work out what the next set of data sets that we want on there. We don't just want to host things on there which nobody wants us doing a bit of research on there. We've got in there 594 gigabytes of data. So I pulled off some stats very quickly before we joined the call. So just picked a random day in July. We had over 2,000 interactions on that day. So there were APIs, there were Explorer interactions, just downloading the actual files. and that was around 150 to 200 gigabytes of data. So as you can see, we do have large volumes of data on there. It's a very proficient platform. We are looking to put more data sets on there, and I think the Google BigQuery platform will fully support that. So we can expect if we come back this time next year, some considerably larger numbers on there. So we are pushing the limits. We are pushing the boundaries of the platform that we've got. And working with Datopian is fantastic, because there's a whole raft of knowledge and resources that we can pull upon. We did think, I think earlier on, about doing this in-house internally, but we don't have the resources. We don't have the skill to do that. The knowledge of the CKAN, what it can offer, and the scalability. So it's great having a partner like Datopian to work with. So I think, Craig, I'm handing over to Matthew now to do the demo.
Yep. So hello, everyone. I'm Matthew. I'm a Senior Statistical Officer here at the NHSBSA. And I've been involved in our open data journey and the open data portal for a long time now. So I'll give everyone a quick tour of what it's capable of. So I will just quickly reshare my screen. So hopefully that's now switched over to our open data portal. Has that, Nick or Craig? Yep, cool. So if you want to have a play along with us, then the link is in the chat. If you click that link, this will be the landing page that you will arrive on. So this is our open data portal, and where all our users get directed to when they first land. And where they all begin their journey. I'm sure lots of you will probably be familiar with CKAN or different implementations of CKAN elsewhere, and you might recognize a lot of the functionality. It just looks a bit different because we did have it custom styled to make sure that it was compliant with the web accessibility guidelines and compliant with our government digital service guidelines, which is a legal requirement for us. So we have to make sure that all of our websites and systems and services are accessible for people to use. When you first land here, you can have a quick search for a data set if you already know what you're looking for, or if you know a specific theme that you want to look at. So for instance, if you were interested in prescribing data or secondary care medicines data, then you could just put a tag in, search the data set, and it will pop up and it'll take you straight to it. Or you can see all of the latest updates here and the time that they were implemented. So if you just want to get the latest month of a data set that you always usually come in and get, you would just come here, click the link, and it will take you straight there. Obviously, if you want to do a bit of exploring, you can instead go to our themes tab, our themes page, which we use to group together our data sets into consistent themes. So we have 3 themes on there at the moment. We have community prescribing and dispensing, because that is probably our main data output at the moment. We have secondary care medicines data, which is data that relates to hospitals instead of GP practices. And then we also at the moment have an experimental data set. An experimental data sets area, where we like to put new and innovative data sets and ask for users to give us their feedback on those data sets before we make them sort of production data sets, so that we can involve them early on and ask our users, is this data useful? What needs to be put in? What needs to be taken out? How easy you find it to access it? And what can we do to make your use of this data better, essentially. So we'll have a little look in here. Our 2 current data sets that we have in there are essentially improved versions of existing data sets that we have. So we have our secondary care medicines data, which has an extra field included, and same with our English prescribing data set. We've just added additional information into these data sets, but instead of pushing them into the live data sets, we've done it here so that people can give us their feedback before we merge it with the live data set, and allow our users to make any changes to any automated jobs that they might have set up that each month goes in and pulls in the data. So we'll have a quick look at our largest data set, which is this one right here, our English prescribing data set with SNOMED code. Once you click on the data set, you get a nice, useful introduction bit of text that quickly describes what the data is and how you should use it. Obviously, because this is an experimental data set, we have set up a feedback survey so that people can complete this and tell us what their opinions are of it. And obviously, we give them a contact address for any queries that they might have with it. And we have a more formal guidance document that they can use as well. Obviously, if you've used CKAN before, you know all the resources for that data set are listed below. We use the resources to upload sort of each monthly extract. And we can have a quick look at the most recent one, which is June 2021 data. So again, it kind of looks fairly standard at the moment, what you'd expect from CKAN. When users come in, they can download the data, and they can either download it as just the raw CSV or as a zip file. This particular file is around 6.5 gigabytes. And as you can see, it contains nearly 18 million rows of data. So if you want to download the full CSV, you can, but you've probably sat there for about 10 minutes, depending on your internet connection, to do it. So it's not a great way to do it. So if you did want the data, it's probably best just to get the zip. We do offer the chance or the choice for users to come in and only filter off what they're interested in as well and extract data that way. Because most of the time people will come in, they don't care about the rest of England. They might be specifically wanting to look at a particular organisation, a particular GP practice, a particular drug that they're interested in. So we can quickly apply a filter for, we'll have a look for a practice. So we say, I'm particularly interested in my local GP practice, which happens to be called P-Law Medical Practice. And you can easily apply the filter like that. And then, as you can see, in no time at all, it's filtered 18 million records and returned only the information that we're interested in. If we want to include, if we want to go, oh, well, I'm interested in P-Law Medical Practice and another neighbouring practice, then we can add that also. Or if we're only interested in a particular drug, then we can add that as well. So we can say, oh, well, we're only interested in aspirin. And we will look for aspirin 300 milligram tablets. So that's all the information that I'm interested in. And handily enough, that's returned us only one row of data. So there was only small instances of that prescribing for that practice. So we'll get rid of that filter just so it's a bit more data for us to export. Now that we've done this, we can quickly just go to our Data Explorer options and download these records. And handily enough, it's spat out a zip file for us that we can now access, and we can get the data that we want. So that's just a quick user journey, going in, quickly getting the data for a single month that they want and coming away. And that will take in, all of 2 minutes for a user to do, which is really good. If you're more interested in doing more complex analysis and not necessarily pulling all of the data out. So for instance, lots of people try to pull the data out and put it into Excel. Obviously, if it's 18 million rows, Excel isn't going to work. And some people don't necessarily have the technical skill to handle those files or put them into a database or put them into a BI tool to handle them. So this is a great way for them to get the information that they're interested in. But if you are more technically minded, you can use the API in order to pull in the data that you want. Here are the sort of example queries that you can use. I won't go too much in depth into the API because we could do it, a full half an hour session on something on the API. But you can do multiple queries. You can pull out all the information that you want. You can loop through all the different resources and stitch together to get a more accurate full time series of all the data that we release. And and do, all kinds of amazing things with it. And you can do it in a tool of your choice. You can do it in JavaScript, Python, R, probably like Power BI. I think other things come with API tools, so you can do it whatever way you want. And the API again is really fast, really responsive, and is just a great tool for our users to be able to use. And I will stop there, and I will reshare the presentation and hand back over to Craig. Start it again. Click through quickly.
Actually, Nick's going to finish off on this one.
Cool. Thank you, Matthew. And the live demo worked. Well done. So first of all, so what we're doing next. So there's lots of things that we want to do, because as we go along this journey, it's about saying, right, let's start off with some of the basics. We started off with the Explorer. We started off with the APIs. We've learned that we need the data from there. So we work with Zootopian to create a separate API so we could pull that data from the Google BigQuery in. So we know peaks and troughs of when people are going to access our data. We can see trends when we've put a large data file in there when people are coming on. So we're building up our own insight from behind the scenes. We did sort of explore looking at API registration, but we want this accessible, want this platform open to everyone. So we sort of discounted that. We are publishing more data sets, as Craig said. So we're looking to publish some of the other data sets that we have, and as we bring on new data into the data warehouse, then we're also looking at that. So it might not be around the sort of medical side of things. We do have citizens data coming in. We have workforce data and things like that. So the data sets will be varied. We run the NHS jobs scheme, so we have all the job applications coming through NHS jobs. So again, there's a rich data set there that people can use. We're collaborating with other parts of the NHS, so we're having conversations with NHS Digital, who we're sharing our experiences with. One, we're working with CKAN, and two, we're with Zootopian, because they're on a very similar journey to what we went on to with regards to our open data portal. So having those conversations, and Craig's joined us in the Open Data Institute. There's an Open Data Leads, which is a UK-based sort of way of working program that they have there, which is about being out in the open there. So look at some of those links. Having conversations with Zootopian around making our data sets more searchable across the web. So it's great having the data on there, but we want people to easily find them, and it's not so easily findable at the moment. So yeah, it's about that, making those data there. We're talking around, there's other parts of our business who provide freedom of information requests. So these can be on anything at any time, but they have looked at some sort of common ones. So if we can preempt those freedom of information requests, put those onto the open data portal, so there's the data set on there, then people can self-serve. So it makes work life a lot more efficient within our organization. We're also looking at, we bring data into the Oracle platform, into our warehouse, using a set of sort of ETLs, extract, transform, and load scripts. And what we're looking at is how we can, once we've loaded the data, we make that available on our dashboards and our Oracle front end. How can we push that straight into the open data portal? So we're exploring how we can use APIs to push that data straight into the open data portal, in the Google BigQuery, but also at the same time pull in the metadata. So we have a data dictionary associated with that data. So how can we combine that into a single job? So as soon as the data is loaded into the warehouse, it's available in dashboards and it's available in the portal. So just trying to get as efficient as possible with pushing that data in there. And again, like I say, Zootopian, they've been great to work with. There's lots more ideas that we've got that we want to sort of bounce around, and it's great having them there to sort of pick the brains on the art of the possible, with regards to sort of our next and our future ambition for the portal.
Thank you very much. It was a fantastic presentation. I suggest we open the floor for some discussion and questions. And I see Adria has a question, so please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. My name is Adrián Mercader. I'm from Open Knowledge, part of the CKAN tech team. Thank you, Craig, Nick, and Matthew for this presentation. That was super enlightening. I have two questions. The first one is a bit technical, so feel free to refer to someone else at Dataopian if you don't know. But I'm really interested on the fact that the data is hosted on BigQuery. So my question was that if basically what has happened is that the standard backend for the CKAN data store, which is Postgres, has been replaced with BigQuery. And if that's the case, whether this functionality or the extensions that allow that are publicly available?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think, yep, I think all of the extensions that have been developed for our portal are publicly available on the Dataopian GitHub. I will try and dig out the links and post them in the chat so that you can have a little look at them.
Amazing. Thank you very much. The question is, I see that most, if not all, the data sets have basically like a monthly seasonality. And I was wondering if you could tell us about the process that this follow for publication, if it's a manual process that someone goes there and creates a new resource every month, or is that hooked into an automated data pipeline that publishes resources every month?
So that's the bit I sort of touched upon at the end. At the moment, it's a manual job to do that, but we're all looking at automating that sort of pipeline. So once we've loaded our data into our main warehouse, we want to push that straight into the open data portal. We are looking at other tools as well. So we're having a conversation with an organisation called Ultrix, who've got lots of connectors into various different things. So it might be that we offer a service where somebody could drop a data file and the metadata file into an S3 bucket, and then we can have a job running on that bucket to suddenly straight away pull that data in there. So not all the data that we put in the open data portal lives in our Oracle estate. So we want different ways and different means of getting that data in. Simple way is via the front end form that people can do and click and drag and drop where the things is. But again, that's a manual effort. We'd like to sort of automate that for people and provide via Craig's team a service, an open data service that people can plug into.
Great, thanks.
Okay, I see Anwar has raised hand, and then Joe.
Hi everyone, I am Anu. I'm from Dataopian, and to add, so Matthew and Nick already covered most of the part for your question, but still, so yeah, we're using BigQuery to replace Postgres. That's true, and everything is open source, so you can find it on GitHub. And one more thing is that we are using CKAN, which is Airflow based, to load the data. So basically, folks from NHSBSA upload large data files around 5 or 6 GB into the file store directly. So we developed a data publishing UI, which is a bit different from the classic one. So it allows you to upload data directly to the cloud, so it's quicker. And then once it's in the file store, it gets picked up by the Airflow and it's pushed to the BigQuery.
Thank you. And Joe.
Actually, yeah, thanks again for this presentation. One thing I'm really curious about is the profile of your current users. One slide you mentioned, one persona, the data retriever. Are those mostly external users? And since you have so many analysts on staff, do they also use the portal for doing analytical workloads and doing data sharing across agencies? And another follow-up question to that is, as you turn all this raw great data into insights, do you have any plans in your roadmap to do any storytelling on the data portal? So sharing visualizations, analyses, and other analytical products and publishing them as resources in the portal as well? Thank you.
Okay, some really good questions in there. So in terms of our user profile, it's still in evolving picture in terms of our knowledge. So we have some really good knowledge about some people who engage with us on a regular basis. But as Nick's kind of highlighted, just on a random day in July, you know, the amount of activity on the open data portal. So we know that we don't know everybody. And that's one area that we really want to develop, is to improve our understanding. We do know from kind of talking to people that there is a large number of people within the NHS that use the open data portal, partly because it's just really easy to use. And even though they may be able to get data elsewhere, they've said back to us that they'll use the open data portal because it's just easier. So that is one area. We are looking to use more kind of anonymized data, either internally. Nick's got some work kind of going on about anonymized layers. So we're looking at anonymization of data, but we're also looking to do a lot more kind of innovative work within the organization using the open data portal. And again, part of that is about actually, if we can use the open data portal and do some really interesting things with it, then can we share that back out to the wider community and get that conversation going, so that people are more interested or have a kind of a stepping off point to how they can use the data within the open data portal. Because we know that there are different stages to this. So there's something about functionality of the open data portal, and then there's something about how easy is it to use the data and to understand the data. So that's parts that we need to help people, which I think then feeds through to that last question around kind of the storytelling of the data. So yes, absolutely, that is one of the areas that we want to explore a little bit more, because we start from the journey of we want to push data out and let people do some innovative things with it and kind of create some value that perhaps we hadn't thought about. Part of it is we want to understand what that is. So could we use our platform to share that innovation with other users? But the other part of it is that the more data that we publish, some of that data that we are currently kind of creating on a monthly basis in response to FOIs or particular data requests, we know that there are certain people who don't have the same profile of being a data in terms of their data literacy as that kind of persona that I showed you earlier on. A large number of those people just want the data, just want the answer. And if we just all of a sudden release 17 million rows of data, that's going to become really hard for them. So part of therefore is actually storytelling, giving some higher level analysis of the data is where we want to explore, not to stop innovation, but to aid some other personas as part of the open data community. We're not there yet, but it's definitely on our roadmap.
Thank you. Actually, I have a follow-up question if nobody else is asking one, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm also quite interested in your decision to use BigQuery, especially with large agencies. They find the default PostgreSQL data store quite limiting. So, but in terms of managing costs, do you have any visibility into, as large data is uploaded into the BigQuery backend, what is the cost, deltas as you load more data? Is there any visibility in the administrative interface?
I'll answer that. So yeah, so the BigQuery is before I started, it was around the performance and the volume of the data we're putting in. So as part of our contract with Datopian, we look at egress, we look at APIs, and storage. There, the sort of kind of three metrics. So that's all the information that we pull out of the Google BigQuery. So we've got APIs which we can just call. It gives us our storage and our API sort of egress numbers, so we can see how many people have just downloaded the file. For example, we know how big the file is, so you can roughly work out how many times or how many files have been downloaded. And then the API ones are then the sort of subsets of those data. So yeah, we do look at that and we do monitor it, because we've got we've got to have some sort of capacity built into the platform for when we add new data sets on there, where we run with unlimited API calls. So that's not really such an issue. We might get to an issue if it's unlimited and we suddenly get lots more API hits when the performance of the machine goes down. But I think we've been assured that that's not going to be the case. So we do look at the storage costs, and we look at the egress costs as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you once again for making that extension open source. A lot of agencies will benefit from that.
Cool. Okay. Do we have more questions? I'm aware of time, so we need to get to closing soon. But if we have more questions, I encourage you to put them in the chat or just ask the speaker straight away.
I just want to ask for the use of API. Are there any use case that using API for data collection, or maybe use this API for like someone developed other like portal, use this API, for example, like a website with lots of charts kind of thing?
We haven't really looked into it too much, unless Matthew corrects me. So we just pull down the API data. We're not really haven't looked into the who's doing it, but I think we should do, like you say, because it might be that somebody else is just calling our APL and producing their own visual, which is fine. We're happy for those sort of things to happen, but it's that bit that I think Craig and I and Matthew need to work on, is kind of, let's see how we can identify our users and then sort of adapt our service to meet their needs as well.
But we, just to add to that, we do have a couple of web groups and organisations that are using the data from the Open Data Portal to create visualizations and reports and web pages and delivering value to the kind of broader system. So it's definitely being used and it's delivering value to the kind of the wider NHS. So that's a good thing, and that shows the kind of the value and the power of that open data.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, like, because most of the people in like management level, like they don't really like know how to use like kind of lots of large sets of data. Like they only want to know like, yeah, the summary of the data itself, like, you know. But thanks.
Yeah, I think we don't know for certain if it is being used in that capacity somewhere, but it can be used in that capacity. Someone on my team is actually building a proof of concept of an R Shiny dashboard that is going to point at the Open Data Portal and visualize the data in a quick and easy, digestible way. So it can be done. We just don't know for certain if it's being done.
Okay, thanks.
All right. If we have no more questions, I suggest we go to closing round. We have the meeting doc. You can, I just dropped a link in the chat. You can find some useful links there. For example, if you want to present to CKAN Monthly Live, there is a forum. You can fill it out and then we'll contact with you. If there is something you'd like to discuss next time, you can put your suggestion in the suggestions for topics and speakers. You can chat with us on Git, or there are discussions on GitHub. You can ask questions on Stack Overflow. You can follow us on social media networks. All the links are in the meeting doc. What's next? So the recording will be uploaded on YouTube probably tomorrow at the latest. And there will be a recap blog post, which will be shared on social media and our blog on ckan.org. Okay, so thank you all for being here. I hope you found this presentation interesting. And yeah, I guess see you next time. And thanks to our speakers, Craig, Nick, and Matthew. It was really a great presentation.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.